We are also following growing fallout over President Biden's decision to waive sanctions on the corporate entity and CEO who's overseeing the construction of Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline into Germany.
The move is confusing a lot of people who heard President Biden pledge many times he would take a very tough stance on Russia.
That's right. For more on this story, we'll turn to Berlin correspondent Trent Murray, live from Berlin. Trent, what's the latest here?
Yeah, well, a shock and surprise, just some of the words that I've been told here in Berlin from government figures that the Biden administration may be about to waive sanctions on the company behind Nord Stream 2, this gas pipeline that will connect northern Germany directly to Russia. And the reason there is some surprise is because, as you say, President Biden has long maintained that the United States would oppose this project. He's often said it's a bad deal for Europe, a bad idea for Germany. But it seems overnight reporting out of the US is suggesting that he may be about to backflip on that position and in doing so give the green light to Berlin to continue to build this gas pipeline. Now, the reason this pipeline is so controversial is because if you look at a map of Europe and see Russia, all of the gas pipelines have to flow through the eastern half of the continent, in particular Ukraine. This pipeline would circumvent all of that and possibly provide quite a bit of leverage to Russian President Vladimir Putin when it comes to sending gas into Europe.
And Trent, what's been the response from Angela Merkel in regards to this latest move from President Biden?
Well, we're yet to hear officially from the Chancellor, but we do know that she has long been a very strong supporter of this project and has withstood enormous international pressure in the past couple of months. It hasn't just been the United States who has been firmly opposed to it, but also closer to home here, neighbours like France, Poland, Ukraine, all have spoken out against the project, and yet she has continued to push ahead with it. Of course, we know the US and Germany has had somewhat of a prickly relationship over the past couple of years. Namely, that has been because President Trump was very opposed to this project. He long maintained, as well as his administration, that this was a security risk for Europe, that this was a bad deal, a bad idea. As I say, President Joe Biden suggested that he shared similar views, but if that reporting is to be believed, we could be about to see a switch in that position.
We will wait and see. Appreciate the live report from Berlin. Trent Murray, live for us this morning. Trent, thank you.
For more reaction on that, we'll bring in now Rick Grenell, former U.S. ambassador to Germany, joining us live here again on the program. Rick, it's a pleasure always. Thank you so much for coming on. We just heard from that report there. You remember former President Trump railed against this deal for years. Here's a reminder of what he said, and then we'll get your reaction.
I think it's very sad when Germany makes a massive oil and gas deal with Russia, where you're supposed to be guarding against Russia, and Germany goes out and pays billions and billions of dollars a year to Russia. But Germany is totally controlled by Russia. We still have to figure out what's going on with the pipeline, because the pipeline is coming in from Russia. So we're going to have to figure that out. I think Germany is making a tremendous mistake by relying so heavily on the pipeline.
Rick, your thoughts on that, just comparing one administration to the other?
Well, first of all, Sean, this watching the Newsmax as you have a Berlin correspondent is just amazing. I just first want to compliment Newsmax for being on the ground right there in Berlin with Trent's reporting. Very good reporting, and I know exactly where he is. He's in the center of it. So kudos to Newsmax for really having the lead on this story. I don't even know where to begin. This is such hypocrisy from the Biden administration. I've had multiple conversations with Chancellor Merkel about this. There's been every excuse in the book that the Germans have used to continue doing this. They recklessly got rid of nuclear energy. They're trying to get rid of coal energy. They need this pipeline. And so they have ignored other European governments who have said, don't do this. I don't know what the Biden administration is getting out of this, because the Germans still have not paid their NATO obligations. They're not helping us with money towards NATO, and the fact that We have so many troops in Germany, 50,000 if you count the rotational troops. President Trump tried to bring down the number of troops, tried to pressure them to pay their NATO bill, tried to say, why are you buying Russian gas at this level? Remember, there's a Nord Stream 1 pipeline, which the Americans are totally fine with, because we do believe that Russia is a part of Europe's diversified energy sources. But Nord Stream 2 goes too far. And by the way, the French agree with us, as Trent was saying. There's a number of countries that agree with us in Europe. The European Parliament agreed with us. Chancellor Merkel is literally isolated, and now Joe Biden has flip-flopped and come to her defense as she's leaving. She's done in September. There's going to be a new team in charge. So I don't understand why they feel that they can be so anti-French, anti-European, and pro-German in this decision, and that's exactly what the Biden administration is doing.
A lot of folks are hearing the term pipeline, right? And they're hearing this is happening overseas, and they're wondering here back in the States, how is it that the president can pave the way to open a Russian pipeline, but he's not reversing his course of canceling the Keystone pipeline, which would have given thousands of jobs?
Look, there's a whole bunch of Democrats who have egg on their face right now because they applauded shutting down the Keystone pipeline. They've applauded, this environmental criteria that they come up with, which, tends to be hocus pocus when you look at the details because it's not unsafe for the environment. Now we see through the latest shutdown, the cyber attack on a pipeline. You've got officials like Secretary Buttigieg saying that pipelines are a great way to move energy supplies. So they look silly. And for all those Democrats like Adam Schiff, who have pounded the Trump administration for being too close to Russia, I'd like to know what Adam Schiff says now, because the Biden team is certainly being pro-Putin. And it looks to me like if you've charged the Trump administration with being a Russian asset, well, the Biden team just came out swinging for Russia.
Before you go, I'm just going to throw this little kind of curveball at you, but there was a statement put out this morning, President Biden conveying to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel that he expected a ceasefire. But many are taking an issue with that term expecting, the president calling the leader of Israel saying he expects a ceasefire from them when there are multiple issues in this area between Gaza, really Hamas and Israel. How did you read that? Is that the appropriate way for the United States of America to respond when you're also sending humanitarian aid to these areas on the other side?
Look, this is where the public needs to understand the delicate diplomatic language that is used. When the United States is not taking this issue to the UN Security Council and demanding a ceasefire, when the United States uses terms like, oh, we expect or we'd like to see, that's really soft language. And I think that's probably what Rashida Tlaib is incredibly upset with, because the Biden team, they really don't have a policy. They say one thing publicly and then they do something else. They don't have the credibility. I believe that the Biden team is not being forceful with Israel to stop defending themselves right now, because Israel would ignore the Biden administration over this. The Biden administration has clearly taken sides that we can see through their policies are anti-Israel. And so I'm not sure Israel is going to pay attention to the Biden administration as much as they maybe should pay attention to the U.S. administration if the U.S. administration was very clear and strong in their words. They're seeing a tepid response from Biden, and they're realizing that Biden knows that he doesn't have any credibility with the Israelis, so why try?
Israel continues to be very adamant. They will defend themselves, as we have heard from Benjamin Netanyahu. Rick Grenell, always a pleasure, sir. And by the way, Rick, thanks for the kind words. We appreciate that.
All the best.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.